how to change your life in 6 months. Now, because you're on this channel and you're watching this video, I'm going to assume a couple things about you, that you are wanting to work on some things in your life. You're probably exactly where I was a few years ago when I was looking for ways to be able to change my life and to make it better. And if that's the case, this video is for you. We are going to be talking about the ways or how you can change your life in 6 months, and I'm going to give you a step-by-step process on how to do that. And this is actually one of my most favorite things to talk about. And if you're new to this channel, you may not know, but my name is Mckensy Long, and I've been an entrepreneur and in the financial space for over a decade. So I've helped thousands of clients get on track financially. I've helped hundreds of agents come into the industry, learn how to become an entrepreneur, how to work hard, develop an agency. So this is one of my most favorite topics to talk about because I think it can make such a huge impact in people's lives, and it's worked over and over and over again. The only thing that I can't really do about this process is doing it for you. But if you're here, I'm assuming that you're willing to put in the work to be able to do it. So let's go through this step-by-step process. And again, the reason why I think this is so important is because you're at such a crucial point in your life. And I think the reason why this is so important was because a little bit more than a decade ago, I was in a similar situation. And just to kind of maybe overshare a little bit, I feel like we're friends, we're community, that I was in this spot where I had a pretty good job, I was making pretty good money, things were going pretty well. I didn't really have anything to complain about, but I really didn't have anything exciting going on in my life. I was dreading going to work. I wasn't really looking forward to anything in my life. The furthest ahead I could see was really what we were going to be doing on the weekend, which usually was some kind of beer pong and drinking and, I don't know, maybe watching a movie or something like that, going to a show. But outside of that, I had nothing really going on in my life. I had nothing really to look forward to. And so maybe you can relate a little bit with me on that. And to now fast forward a decade later and to see how much my life has changed by following these exact principles that I'm going to give you is really a huge testament to how well they work. And I've learned this from all different types of people, whether it's from Think and Grow Rich, whether it's for Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a combination of all these things. And this is what I work with people on who want to change or develop things in their life. And maybe you're not even as much of a desperate situation as I was a decade ago, where I had nothing really going for me. I wasn't doing well financially. My body was in pain. I didn't like what I was doing for work. I didn't have any goals in life. Maybe you're not quite that far gone. Maybe you're doing really well in your life and you just want to take it to the next level. Wherever it is that you're at, this will work for you. And this is what I continually use year after year after year, and it gets revamped all the time. But let's get into it instead of talking just about it and how it's worked for me. And I think the first place to start, although there's probably plenty that we could debate about this, but I think the first area to start is start setting some goals for yourself. And I think it should be 5 goals. And the reason why I say 5 is because I think there's really 5 areas or 5 main things that, when developed properly, create a wealthy life. And that's going to be your faith, it's going to be your family, your finances, your fitness, and your fun. And if you can figure out those 5 parts of your life, and you can get those dialed in, you can live an extremely wealthy life. And the reason why I say that is because it's so rare to do. And it's not because it's not possible, but oftentimes people lose track or only focus on 1 or 2 of those areas, where maybe all they focus on is the money, and they do it at the sacrifice of their faith, their family, their health, and their fun. And that's not a wealthy life. You might have a lot of money, but it's not a wealthy life. And the other challenge I see people have is maybe they only focus on their faith and their family, but they have no money, they're not healthy, and they don't have any fun. right? So the importance of focusing on all 5 of these things is very, very important. So set a goal for each one of those areas that's important to you. And maybe in your faith, you can have some goals. Maybe in your family, you have some goals. You have some things you need to work on. Maybe some things are getting behind in your marriage or with your kids. Maybe in your finances are getting behind or you'd like to develop those. Maybe in your health is lacking a little bit. You need to work on that. And then also, how can you have fun? And I started thinking about fun differently. Before, it used to be beer pong and hanging out with the guys and maybe watching a game. Fun has completely changed for me. And I think when you start setting those goals, it starts to help you look forward in life. And the reason why that is important is because we have to go to step number 2. And the reason why I put step number 1 first is because of the excitement and the energy that it creates. And when you start thinking about your future and you start planning for the future and you start looking for ways to make your life better, I think that that creates energy and momentum, which is important in starting any endeavor or any change in your life. Now, step number 2 is not quite as much fun, but it's equally as important, if not just as important or more important, because step number 2 is really evaluating where you're currently at in life in each of those 5 areas. Now, some of them you might be doing very well at. Maybe you've got your finances knocked out. You're making $250,000, $500,000 a year. You've got the income part taken care of, but maybe you haven't really started to develop, well, how do I start saving money? How do I start investing? How do I start turning this income into passive income? So it might not be the entire area that you need to work on. Maybe it's just small pieces within it. Or maybe your family life is doing really well, but you have that one relationship that you really wish it was better. And that if you put a little bit of time and effort into it, it would probably get better. Right? So there are certain things in each one of those areas that we can probably work on and develop. So take account of where they currently are, and maybe that will even help you combine with step number 1 and go, okay, this is currently where it's at, and this is where it could potentially go that would make me happy. And then I'm going to set that as a goal. I'm going to set it going from here to here as my goal, whether that's weight, whether that's your relationships, whatever it might be. Then step number 3 is pretty simple. It's simply, how do I get it from A, from where it is now, to B, what my goal is and where I want it to be? And what's the strategy that I use to do that? And this is really where that coaching can help. But if you're going to do this on your own, I think you can. It's just a little bit more difficult because part of the challenge I see, and I can relate this even with finance, is the challenge that people have oftentimes is that we start looking down at our feet and we're trying so desperately not to make a mistake that our vision has gotten narrowed down so much that we oftentimes don't see the things that are right in front of us. And whether that's dangers or opportunities, we don't see them because we're just trying not to misstep. And that's usually where people are at when they're starting to look at some of these things. And so the important part of a coach is that they can see things that you can't see. They can help you lift your eyes so that you can see both those opportunities and those dangers that are coming up in front of you. And because they've probably done it, if you're talking to somebody who makes great money or knows how to work with money, well, they're obviously going to know tips and strategies that you don't know. So you might have to look at finding resources at those particular areas. Maybe you need to talk to your pastor about how to get better in your faith and how to read the Bible. You don't read it front to back. So maybe you've tried to do that and it didn't make sense to you. So what is the plan to actually accomplish those particular things that you're trying to get better at? And inside of that plan, what are those particular steps? How can you tell that you're moving forward? How do you build that strategy, right? Like if you had to sell me out on this idea, how in detail is it? And if you're new at this, you might have a little bit of a struggle here, but just try to get it as detailed as you can. It doesn't have to be extremely detailed, but know what the steps in the process are if possible. And what I mean by that is if your goal is to save $100,000, what are the steps in that process? How can that be broken down? And then you build a plan around that. Step number 4 is to put the odds in your favor. And what I mean by that, or really what number 4 is titled, is make it easy to be able to keep your word. And the importance of this is that you're setting yourself up for success instead of setting yourself up for failure. An easy example of this is if one of your things is to work out more. Some of the things that you can do to make it easier, if you have a hard time waking up in the morning, you can do things to make it easier to wake up in the morning. For instance, prepare your shoes and your clothes before you have to leave so that you can sleep a little bit longer. You can prepare your protein shake or your pre-workout and have it out on the counter before you go to bed. You can make sure you set as many alarms as you need, or get an alarm clock that moves on you, or whatever it is that you need to do. Start putting the odds in your favor so that you have a higher likelihood of actually achieving it. And some of this might be maybe you work better with a partner. And so you can meet somebody at the gym who's going to give you a hard time if you don't show up or you show up late, or they're anticipating you being there, because sometimes you'll work harder for somebody else than you will for yourself. You've got to learn a little bit about your own personality here. But what are the things that you can set up that allow people or your environment to help you instead of working against you? Because it's much harder to wake up late, then you're rushing to put on your clothes, you don't know where everything's at, you don't have your protein and stuff prepared, you didn't even order any, and so it's easier at that point to go, why should I even go? It's going to take me this long to get ready. By the time I get to the gym, I'm not going to be able to work out. So start putting those things, start putting the odds in your favor. And number 5 is start taking action. Ready or not, whether your plan is completely built, whether your goal is completely built or not, it doesn't really matter. The main thing that we need to do is actually start taking action on those things that we want. And you're going to have challenges. You're going to fail in the process. You're going to try not to scream at your kids for a week, and you're going to mess up, and that's going to be okay. The reason why I say in that plan it's important to understand the stages is if you're right now yelling at your kids 5 times a day and your goal is 0 times a day, well, you're not going to go from 5 to 0. Maybe you can go from 5 to 4 for a week, to 3 for a week, to 2, maybe back up to 3, down to 2, and there's going to be a process, a graduation, if you will, of getting closer and closer to your goal, because you're going to make mistakes. You're not perfect. We're working on habits here. They take time. And as Napoleon Hill would say it, take action, start working towards your goal, whether you're ready or not. Kind of like this picture here. I don't know who took this picture, but it says, finally, all my ducks are in a row. All of your ducks are never going to be in a row for almost your entire life. If you find a time when they are, hopefully you're already running full speed, because then everything's just going to compound on top of that. But if you're waiting for everything to be perfect before you take action, you're never going to be in a position to actually take action. And number 6, I think it's important to track these things as much as you possibly can. And it's going to vary depending on the goal, but if, again, your goal is maybe to not yell at your kids 5 times a day and you want to get that down to 2 or 3 times a day, well, maybe you just put a little note on your book, or you write it on your arm or something, and then at the end of the day you can write in your journal or whatever it is, and you can track and say, I did 4 times today, I normally do 5, 4 is better, but I got to remember to do this, and this is what I'm noticing, this is when I get triggered, this is why I want to yell, it seems like it always happens in the morning when we're trying to get the kids ready. Whatever it might be, start tracking those things, because you'll learn a lot about yourself in the tracking. And when you track things, when you actually observe things and you write them down, they can get better, they can improve, because you're tracking those numbers. And number 7, probably the most important one, is to actually finish the job. Regardless of how terrible of a job you do, how okay of a job you do, or how great of a job you do, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you finish it. And by finishing it, you would be amazed by how much confidence you will have in yourself and how much better you will feel as you set future goals. And now that you've collected data, you've put in the effort, so you had a plan, you want to go from here to here, you actually wrote that out, then you tracked it and you got maybe halfway. Well, now you understand the work that it takes to get halfway. If it's a savings goal, maybe you want to save $100,000 this year. Well, you got to $50,000. Well, now you know the work that it takes to get to $50,000. So either you can work more or you need to change that goal or find different ways of doing things to be able to hit that goal. But now you have realistic numbers. I see people do this all the time. Well, I want to make $1 million a year, but they're used to making $50,000 or $60,000 a year. It's going to take time to go from making $50,000 a year as an employee to making $1 million a year as an entrepreneur. There's a process that has to happen there. And if you don't track it, you won't know what's working and what's not working. And what that allows you to do is set better goals the next time that you can do it. So this is a compounding effect. Each time you do it, you've learned something about yourself. You've learned something about what you want and what you don't want. Some of these goals you're going to be working towards go, you know what? It's really not that important that I put flames on my Camaro anymore. That's not really what's important to me. I actually think it's more important to do this. And 2-3 weeks into it, you go, oh, this wasn't that important to me. This is more important to me. So all of this is part of that personal development space that you're going to get better the more that you do it. And the more effort and tracking you do, the easier it gets to set goals in the future. And you start to build confidence because of that. And you just become this machine that constantly hits goals after goals after goals. Have you ever seen those people who come into an organization, a sales organization, or into a business or whatever, and they just conquer everything that they've hit? This is exactly how they do it. And it's because they have the confidence to know that when they set a goal, that they're going to figure it out. And they might be a little bit off, but then they know how to do it even better next time. And if you compound this over a lifetime of doing that, you're going to be able to knock these things out so easy, and then your life really will be wealthy. And if you have any questions or you want help with any of these things, please put in the comments down below. I'd love to be able to write back and give you whatever support and value that I can. If you want to do better financially, that's really my main expertise, even though I do a lot of these things in helping entrepreneurs become better in life, and they've got to go through this exact same process. But there's additional resources for you down below. Let's get in contact. I'd love to hop on a call with you, go through some information, figure out where you're at, how to set some goals, some great strategies to be able to do that. I'll even send you some resources and some books that you can speed up that learning curve and do it even faster. But whatever you're working on, I'd love to be there to support it. So please make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the little bell, do all the YouTube-y stuff. And I appreciate you for that. It really does help this channel grow when you take that time and effort to do that if you haven't already. And as always, I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll catch you later. Bye.